Hi everyone, and welcome once again to another Atos Smart Manufacturing Studio Fireside Chat. It really started slow with the very first Fireside Chat where we wanted to speak about marketing. Now it's a real initiative, and we started talking about the different topics: global marketing, decarbonization, technology, innovation, customer-based and customer-tailored sessions. And the interest on decarbonization was especially very great. After the Fireside Chat we've done with Pierre Barnaby, head of global manufacturing, we wanted to take it to the next part, really focusing on the topic, what is to be taken care of during manufacturing processes, during different phases. And I learned so much already in the preparation calls, but I cannot present that. And you know, I always bring very knowledgeable speakers. And today it's an absolute pleasure that I may welcome Stefan Unterhuber, Senior Director, Decarbonization at Atos, and also Decarbonization Lead, Atos Smart Manufacturing. Hi, Stefan, great to have you here with me.
Hi, Friso, great to be with you. Hi.
It's so interesting, at least like in the preparation talk we had, where you told me about the real phases. So that it's not just about optimizing whatever, 25 computers you might have in a manufacturing plant, but that there is so much more. Yeah, you emphasized that there are the three phases, design, make, and use, if I'm still right in the hat. And you're going to talk a little bit more about that so we get a better understanding on what has to be done, what could be done. And remembering Pierre's word, it's like, it's not an option when or how to start. It's like, you have to go for it right now, if I can say that correct.
Absolutely, Friso, you're right. And yeah, you remembered correctly, the phases design, make, and use is what we want to talk about today. To give it a bit of a structure and to lead the audience through from a manufacturing angle, because decarbonization, as you rightfully said, is a broad topic, and there's so much to do. So trying to build upon what Pierre said the last time, energy efficiency for a manufacturing process is certainly a key topic. But today we want to look a bit to the beginning of that. So before the product is actually produced, to the design phase, and afterwards, when the product has left the manufacturing plant, what's happening in the use phase, and how can you, with the help of IT and with the help of digital solutions, how can you contribute to the decarbonization goals that you have as a company? So that's what we're going to do today.
Wow, that's perfect. Sounds interesting, because there are so many things you have to really take in mind when we talk about decarbonization of the product. Sometimes we just think of the use phase itself. So it's about like driving the car or using that specific product, for example. But the whole, let's call it decarbonization chain where it is built up, for example, it starts at the very beginning where you're going for the raw materials in a way, taking care of the supply chain, bringing it anywhere, using it, and then just like bringing it forward. About the three phases. So what are those three phases, and what are like the typical things and on decarbonization in those three, Stefan?
Yeah, let me start with design. You just mentioned it, the material that you use, and it's not a secret, and it's nothing new. Manufacturing industry has been looking at using material efficiency ever since. There was always been a goal to use the right material, use as little as possible. The driving factors for the design process have always been cost and quality and availability of material. And what we don't see today in all of those tools that help a product designer build a product is the sustainability KPIs attached to that. So while all the rest is quite well known, so material features and also the cost maybe and the availability, it's hard for the product designer to determine what is the impact of my design decision over the lifetime of the product. What is the impact specifically on cradle to gate? So from raw material until it leaves the building. And what is the impact on cradle to cradle when I really think about a circular life cycle? You can calculate that, obviously, but what we believe the task for us and the task for software vendors that we, as an integrator, want to bring to our customers, the task at hand is to make that decision-making process easy for the product designer so that it's transparent and it's visible throughout the process. It's comfortable to use, it's correct. And in a way, what the ultimate, requirement for such a tool would be that it blocks you from taking a bad decision. It blocks you kind of doing harm. Everybody in the sustainability says doing no harm is no longer enough. You need to do actually good, right? But in a production process, when you are designing a new product, what we want to avoid is people taking a wrong decision, using the wrong material, not thinking about the way the material might be sourced, not thinking about the supply chain. Is it resilient enough? So we want to integrate all of these data points into the design process, and that's what I think. That's a function that software can do, that a system of a system of systems. That's how we look at it. Should be able to achieve. Everybody's aware of supplier management tools. There is product lifecycle management tools. There is sourcing tools. There is even risk assessment tools. In our view, in the design process, all of those tools and all of those processes and insights need to come together at the hands of the product designer, at the hands of the decision makers, in order to avoid any decisions that later harm the CO2 footprint of that specific product.
Right. Right. Well, I understand. What I have to ask, like, it's then all about traceability. It's like finding the things, having every single piece. My first question would be, it's like, is all the data available already? Is it now gathered in some way? And please, before you answer, all viewers right now that are live with us, especially on LinkedIn or also on YouTube, please, if you have a question, just place the questions in the comments of those video. And yes, as you can see right now, we'll try to cover it. So this is really a live session, no pre-recorded, no scripted. If you have a proper question or something you really want to know about those three phases or any other question Stefan could answer, feel free to put them in here. Very welcome. So I was there on data availability,
Yeah.
and you said also making a wrong decision. So is there anything like how wrong a decision it can be if I take that material or not? Does it have like a wrongability index?
A wrongability index, that's nice. Now, what we're talking about at the moment is compliance
Right.
with regulation, compliance with law, and that is built in. Toxicity is, people understand that pretty well, but maybe not when you talk about taking a product back at some point in time and refurbishing it or remanufacturing it. Then it becomes a totally different story. But because when you look at not just a recycling process where you say, okay, I will dispose of that material later in recycling and it will become a certain class of material I need to take care of, then all of a sudden you need to rule it out altogether, because you're not looking at recycling at all. You look at remanufacturing, refurbishing, reusing material. So that's one example where you can make a wrong decision that locks you out of a certain business model that you want to pursue later. When we come to the use phase, we'll talk about business models a little more.
Okay.
But in the design phase, you already need to think about that. And when you ask about data availability, of course, not all data is available. Yeah, that's one of the biggest gaps we need to close, and we need to work with the supply chain upstream and downstream to close those data gaps. Again, that's a task for us. That's a task for IT. That's a task for digital platforms. That's something where we need to show solutions, where we need to bring our expertise to the market and help customers to close those data gaps by either helping them improve their primary data, stuff they already have in the system, or source relevant and trustable, trusted secondary data. That is something also that's in our responsibility when we want to deliver turnkey solutions to the manufacturing industry.
Understand. So we're talking about like database in the way of design for the design phase. So you have the data available, you can calculate that. It's like when we're looking at manufacturing, things like prototyping changed totally. Yeah. So I remember times or just like also the information I have where prototypes were really built of hard material. How does digital play in there, like technologies, augmented reality, virtual reality, digital twins, and all that? How can they help also in that matter?
That's another angle for the design phase that that can contribute greatly to your decarbonization goals,
Mhm.
reduce the material and resources that you need in the prototyping phase and in the actual design work that you do. Use
Right.
virtual reality, mixed reality, augmented reality tools to avoid building the real thing, or collaborate better with other product engineers across the globe without having to travel. I mean, that's the pretty straightforward things to do. And it happens already, sometimes for cost reasons. And again, the same thing applies. It's not measured what is the impact on decarbonization. So if you're already using that as a company, if you already do those kind of virtual design setups, if you already do use 3D printing for your prototyping, you should measure that. You should measure and report on it. What does it save you in carbon compared to the way you did it before, or compared to the way maybe your competition does it, which gives you an advantage in the discussion when it comes to your carbon footprint.
Okay. So it's also not just like measuring it, also reporting what you
Yeah,
said. So
absolutely.
basing on your the knowledge you have, on the amount of material you have in correlation to the baseline of like what is really the saving in some way, where you just like say, okay, what are the savings, and that into reporting. Are there reporting tools doing this automatically? I don't know if you know this. Is it like something, what to report?
So reporting tools on that level of granularity I was just talking about are not existing to my knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we want to achieve, that this kind of information can be gathered from all different sources, aggregated and automatically reported on an enterprise level to
Right.
have a footprint that is much more granular than it is done today, top down. This is kind of a bottom-up approach to a carbon reporting. If you really look at the business processes and how much they contribute to a certain reduction goal. So to wrap it up, design phase, what we've spoken about is the reduction in the production process and in the design phase, in the design phase prior to the production process, when it comes to the material selection
Right.
and later the production process that you use, and we also have been looking at ways to reduce the actual doing the actual work by using prototypes built on 3D printers or using collaboration tools.
Mhm. We got a question coming in. Thank you for this, Paul. It's like, do digital tools in the design phase really help with sustainability goals? And to make it like digital simulation tools use a lot of energy too. Like it's like high performance computing, and that was a high performance sometimes means high power consumption computing.
Yeah,
What could you say about that?
that's a really good question, Paul. So you're saying that building the car actually has a much bigger footprint than anything you could save in the design process. So if you compare the actual car production with the design process, it becomes marginal. And I agree with that. But that's if what we're trying to do here is we try to look at the contribution of each step. So if we look at a car company as a whole and we have to identify where to reduce first, then obviously it would be the make process and the material sourcing of the actual 1 million cars that's produced every year. But when we try to also understand where are decisions made about the footprint of those 1 million cars produced, then that
Mhm.
happens in the design process. And I'm not talking really so much of optimizing the tool usage or resource usage in the design process. There, your point is absolutely valid. That would be marginal compared. But if the design process already has the budget built in, say the car has a carbon budget of X tons over a life cycle of 30 years, and the designer knows that and designs against this budget, and next year the budget is smaller, and the year after the budget is smaller, and the designer gets all the tools to design against that ever decreasing budget, and has artificial intelligence at her hand to take the right decisions, has forecasting on technology at their hand to understand, okay, it might not be accessible today, but this technology is coming with a certainty of X, so I can factor in this kind of reusability for that material. That gives you a tool set it's not available today. That's more a visionary statement I'm making
Right.
here. That's what we believe can then really contribute to that 1 million produced cars, lower the footprint of each and every one, because in the design phase, there was so much intelligence available, so much knowledge at the fingertips of the designers that they could take those decisions.
Mm.
Okay,
I think that that's the point.
yeah.
If you can take the right decision, for example, material, maybe in the phase, yes, but for the make, it just like makes a tremendous difference on that one.
Yeah.
What brings us to the make phase? So what is then there? If we designed it, if we took care, if the wrongability index, which I'm going to be let it patented or something like that, was making a good job with that. Then we are in the make phase, yeah, and make is all about using materials in high quantities.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, it's not nothing new. Manufacturers have always looked at resource efficiency, material efficiency. Efficiency has been driving them in the make phase. For decades. They've looked at efficient procurement and logistic processes. And again, in the make phase, what we're trying to do is, let's say it's three different things. One is introduce the concept of remake and refurbish. So a
Right.
manufacturing process, a production line that's built to make a certain product, what is the effort to make that production line to turn that into a remake production line? You get products back, you have to remake them, you take them apart and put them together again, or you refurbish them. What's the effort? Can you, with a digital tool, can you actually assess that today? Can you build a digital twin that cannot just show you that's the production line, but also that's the remake line, that's the refurbishing line? That's an ideal way of building your production line. So it's a multi-purpose line. Those are things that we don't see today, but we believe that will be a great opportunity for a lot of manufacturers to extend their business and differentiate themselves. So that's the whole part of remake and refurbish. So one production line can serve multiple purposes. And then when we talk about efficiency, we think we come to the point where efficiency is reaching its limits. That's where we talk about the decoupling of resource usage and output. So if you have a relative decoupling, so that means you're much more efficient in using resources and your output grows with less resources, and you build more, your resource consumption grows. So output grows and consumption grows. Output grows faster than consumption, but consumption grows. So if you look at a decarbonization, or if you look at a sustainable world, consumption of resources has to shrink and not grow.
Right.
So that's what that's where we talk about absolute decoupling, and that's a concept that manufacturers could really look into. What are the materials? What are the sources of energy where absolute decoupling can be reached? It's a really difficult discussion, and we think that the efficiency discussion will go from the relative decoupling discussion to an absolute decoupling discussion, where we want to go more into the consistency domain. And that again closes the circle. And when we talk about consistency rather than efficiency, then we are at remake, refurbish. Then we're not going to try to build one product with little resources. We're trying to build 10 products with the same resources, because the product's coming back and back and back again, and we refurbish it. So we're using parts almost in an endless circle, like steel, which is can be recycled without without loss, and other material like that. So that's something what we believe the make phase will see a lot of development in the coming years.
So it's about thinking about recursion, demand-based or something like that. So they say like, okay, we don't put them out just like if they are needed really bit. So that's also sustainability in other ways, not taking everything out and waiting for someone to really consume it, but on a demand-based level, go the numbers down and be like in time in that, so that they are there at use when they are needed for use, right?
And the logistics around that will, now we have just in time, just in sequence. The logistics will be challenged with an additional stream, all the products that are coming back to be remade or refurbished, at which point in the life cycle do you recall them? In which market do you recall which products? Do you recall only your premium products? Can you also recall your mid-segment products? Where is the breaking point for those business models, and how can you calculate your resources and your production logistics accordingly? I think that's new questions. And again, today we talk about what can IT, what can digital systems do, and I think they can contribute a lot here, because that's data coming back from the consumers, from the customers, to your production side, allowing you to plan your remake and refurbish lines that we spoke about, and help you to define your, not so much your efficiency level, but your consistency level. So how long can you keep the same part, the same material in the life cycle?
Okay, got it. Life cycle is also important on usage. So we designed it, we made it, now it's up to use. And I think there are also just like a lot of things to consider in regards of decarbonization, where it's already just like steps and steps and steps you can do, but also, of course, the usage of some of the products itself. So what they will contribute in regards of putting out CO2, for example, or other materials.
So on decarbonization, the use phase for our manufacturing customers is one of the hardest topics, because 90% or 80 to 90%, many manufacturers have an 80 to 90% emission in their scope 3 downstream, which is the products in use. A lot of our customers have that. So reducing that portion is a great step towards a net zero goal, or a decarbonization, a sustainability ambition that they have. How can you achieve that? It was with Paul that Paul Miller, who asked the question before. We had a discussion on that, how IoT could be an enabler for those long happening shift from product-centric business models to service-centric business models. And this has been done for many years now, and been discussed for many years. And I believe that with decarbonization, that gets new attention, because such a shift from a product-centric model to a service-centric model also helps you to lower your emissions and your resource usage, your resource consumption, because it gives you an incentive to keep your products in the market longer, to keep your products in use longer. All of a sudden, everybody has the same incentive. So your customers who want to use the product as long as possible without any failure, and you who want to sell the service as long as possible and have as little maintenance effort as possible, a little resource input as possible. All of a sudden, the life extension of the product becomes an incentive, whereas we have had a totally opposite incentive until now. So if you were a manufacturer that produced a product that never breaks, you had an issue with growth at some point in time.
Right.
That's a bit polemic in parts. We know that there's a hot discussion, but there's some truth to it. So it was better to replace your products after a certain while, which obviously increases your consumption. So those aligned incentives will help the decarbonization ambition a lot. So we talk about circularity, obviously, we had that before. So prolonging the life by taking it back and remaking, refurbishing it. But also there's another concept that's well known, the sharing economy. Now, again, not to earn money or bind customers to your product, but also to contribute to the decarbonization goals by sharing a good, reducing the footprint of a product in use, because you have less products out there, but you have more usage. So it's a high utilization rate, your product has a higher efficiency and effectiveness, and you can show that your product in use has a lower footprint than before. But at the same time, it's used more heavily. So
right. But it's also part of like responsibility in some way. It's like also being responsible for what will be done with the product or for myself. Like, do companies account for when I drive like heavily and whatever? It's like when does the responsibility or the sustainability chain end for manufacturing? Is there some point, because they have to think about it, right?
I don't think it ends. I think it stays with the manufacturer. If we look at carbon accounting according to the Greenhouse Gas Protocol for Scope 1, 2, and 3, they are accountable from raw material until end of life. According to that protocol, I don't see where it should end. And I would also advise every manufacturing client to look at it exactly like that. They're responsible from the raw material they source until it's back. It's back or at the end of life, or back as a raw material in the recycling process. So it never ends. And enabling your consumers to treat the product and to use the product sustainably is also part of the responsibility of the manufacturer. Enabling their product designers to not do any harm is also in the responsibility of the manufacturers. Helping their product line manager, their production managers, to use as little resources and energy as possible and to work consistently with the material they have is also in the responsibility of the manufacturer. So I wouldn't let them off the hook at any of those stages. They're fully in it, and I think it needs to be like that, because then we can see an end-to-end reduction of carbon emissions and other sustainability indicators.
Right. Well, thank you for this. I think that that's really important, that it's not just like that they should be responsible or taken for responsibility. It also accounts to them. So it's like in their reports, in their stats, it will show up like where they got it from, how the usage is like until it is back. And I think that's an important point. Is there some suggestion you could make? What could be a first step? Really, I know it's hard. And Pierre said like, when you're changing a bathroom, you don't start with changing one tile. You have to change a bathroom. But is there? I always ask about the first step to get things going. Is there any advice you could give?
Yeah, normally what we advise manufacturing clients who want to create their sustainability roadmap, start with your scoping. So where is your biggest emission factors in scope 1, scope 2, scope 3, upstream, downstream? Where is it? What do you have in place already? Where can you achieve some quick wins? So little budget, big reduction impact, and move forward with that. Our company EcoAct, those are the climate consultants that we have acquired a year ago. They do exactly these kind of scoping workshops and help customers to understand where they are, maturity assessment, climate scenarios, what effect would it have if you do this versus you do that? How do you report it? How do you talk about it? Where do you get the data? All these kind of more strategic advisory services they can bring. So that's a good starting point.
Well, I think that's quite unique. So it's just like not technology, IT. It's about like offering climate consultancy, and I think that that's also quite important. Sometimes to understand that. That's really a good point to assess it, to see what is possible, and to prioritize the steps you could do. It's like what has the highest impact, and what you do, and then just like tick off the boxes step by step, going and taking that forward. Right. Okay. Well, thank you so much, Stefan. That was so interesting. Again, I learned so much more, because I was like, okay, well, you just need to think about like your production line in some way, maybe your machines you're using, but taking into account from the raw material to the very end just changes the way you think, and that it now also like will get into your reportings, and that there are ways to go for net zero. And even beyond that, because we all know that the journey is not over there. That's one big achievement we all have to make, over all industries, over all groups, over whatever it is. But on the other hand, we really need to set the base that we can make the extra step of really taking CO2, for example, out of the air again. Stefan, thank you so much. You took time for me. Have a great day. If there will be some more questions, we will forward them to you for sure. And like with the last Fireside chats, there were some questions coming later on. I think we still have to tell the people that they should not be shy. There is no wrong questions on that topic. Every question is important now, also for our understanding how we can support you, right?
That's absolutely right. So looking forward to receive some questions. I'll take them offline, no problem.
That's perfect. Thank you so much. Bye-bye. Have a great day, Stefan. So I think that was very informative. If you want to have more information, I also now have the link in here where you can get more information. And we're also taking care that the link itself will be placed in the chat, because you cannot click on the link here in the video. Well, this was another very important session, and we are not stopping. And we got your feedback that, first of all, the format is something you like, and that there are different topics you want us to be covered. And one thing I want to say, like next Tuesday, we're going for a very, very special session. So we're not taking it ahead on technology and not about manufacturing in detail, because sometimes change starts with changing your mindset and your behavior. So we are absolutely pleased that we can go on September the 14th at 5:30 Central European Time for a special session with Ricky Kalmer about adapting mindset and behavior. So in this episode, we are going to welcome the mindset expert, and it's really going to be an interesting topic. So stay tuned, register yourself as soon as possible. We're going also to put the link to this event into the session here. And I just have to look back if some comments came in. I just see them popping up right now in the live session. Yes, thank you so much. I see some thank yous are coming in. It's absolutely great to have you here. Have a great weekend, everyone, and see you on Tuesday for the next Atos Smart Manufacturing Fireside Chat. Bye-bye.